Hey, what's up, guys? It's Isabel, aka Coco. I know that this video is long overdue, and then I decided that I was gonna do it on my 1 year anniversary, but things changed, and I feel like now is the time for me to finally testify of everything I've gone through. Well, first, my health just got worse and worse. It started off with me constantly getting chills, getting a fever, and then I started feeling so tired, even though I would sleep supposedly the 8 hours we're supposed to be sleeping. And then all of a sudden I would do like little things and I would be not out of breath, but I needed more air. I remember when I would work out with my friend, towards closer to my diagnosis, I just was so out of breath, so exhausted. I stopped working out with her. She'd be like, "Oh, you want to work out today?" I'm like, "No, I'm not really feeling it." And then after work, because I only worked part-time and I worked in the mornings from 6:30 till 11, 12 in the late morning, noon. And I would always go across the street to my neighbor's house. She's a retired teacher. She's kind of ancient. And I would just go to her house, and then her driveway is like going downhill. I mean, it's not like, oh my gosh, I gotta walk all the way down there. Like, it's just, like a small hill. But I'd go over to her house and then I would clean like her room. I mean, not her room, her kitchen. And I remember that just walking to her house, I would be out of breath and then I'd be in the kitchen silently trying to catch it back. And I remember the day, oh, I also lost my appetite because I remember one of my friends, I think she came to visit. I can't remember. But we went out for lunch and I had absolutely no appetite. And she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, I just don't have an appetite." And she's like, "Because you always eat." Like, we're both very good at eating. Somos bien tragonas. But anyways, we went and I kind of forced myself to eat the clam chowder I ordered. And then I remember I wasn't technically diagnosed, but July 10th, I remember that I went to my neighbor's and I couldn't breathe. I was so exhausted. And then coming home, I went straight to my room. And I remember I cried a little because I didn't know what was going on. I also had a lymph node behind my ear. It started small and then it got bigger and bigger. I'm going back a little bit. I went 2 days before I went straight to the ER. I went to the clinic to get the lymph node checked out, and because of COVID, they didn't take me in. They just COVID tested me because of my symptoms. I could have lied, but I didn't want to do that. And they told me to come back, and I think 48 hours or so. And on July 10th, I texted my friend, the one that took me out to eat. I texted her and I'm like, hey, can you take me to the clinics? They told me to go back, so I was planning on going back there. And she's like, why, what's wrong? And I'm like, I just can't take this anymore. And so she came and she's like, I'm taking you to the ER. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And we went. They did pretty much the same thing. They asked me the COVID questions. They're like, okay, we're gonna keep you in here because of your symptoms while your results come back. They drew labs. They came back. My white blood cells were really high. It was more than 100,000. They said that I was anemic, and I didn't even know I was anemic. They said that the high white blood cell count was a sign that it could possibly be leukemia, which is why I say that I was technically diagnosed the 11th because of that. I actually went to the ER right before 4, and I didn't get transferred to a hospital till 2 in the morning. My dad was with me until visiting hours were over. And if you know my dad, you know that he's not an emotional person. I've seen him cry. Before that, I seen him cry twice over my grandma's death. Oh no, she wasn't dead. Sorry. She went into a coma, I believe, and they pretty much pronounced her dead. And so my uncle called everybody and told them that she was gone. And so he started crying, and that was the very first time I ever saw him cry. The second time was when mi tia Nina passed away as well. And then when I got diagnosed, I know that he was trying not to show it, but he wasn't good at hiding it, and I know that he was crying. I finally got flown out to UCSF, Benioff Children's Hospital. I arrived at 4 in the morning. Right away, they started asking me questions. They hooked me up to an IV. They were giving me fluids. And then my parents came down. And because of COVID, they weren't letting more than a visitor at a time. But since it was something important that my parents needed to know, they let them both in. And they told us the news. And of course, we all started crying. The first month in the hospital was horrible. The first 2 weeks I was by myself. It was just really hard having to go through that and not being able to have your parents by your side. Of course they came to visit me, but it's not the same when it's just for a bit. And then In October, they told me I was cancer-free. But sadly, that did not last. And I remember we had to spend Thanksgiving, my brother's birthday, and Christmas in the hospital. My cancer came back early December, I believe. I was discharged on Christmas morning, which was kind of nice, even though I was still so far away from my family. Good thing is that we were able to go home for New Year's. I was able to see my little brother, who lives in a different city, more north than what we live. And then in late January, I got COVID. We went home because I was getting tested every 2 weeks, and then they switched it to every week. So I got tested a week before I was negative, and then when I did another COVID test about a week later, I was positive. So my transplant was canceled, all my appointments were canceled. They told me, you need to go back home like now, and just rest, drink a lot of liquid, just, what they usually just tell you, that be safe, quarantine, all that good stuff. And then, of course, because the virus lives in you for 3 months, it's going to keep coming back positive. So they postponed my transplant for March. But since I was still coming positive, they obviously had to postpone it again. And then I finally came out negative somewhere in March. And they planned to do my transplant in April, and it finally fell through. And so they said, I'm getting admitted on the 8th. I was admitted on the 8th. I immediately started chemo the next day to kill off my immune system. They completely wiped it out. All the vaccines that I've gotten from a baby up until whenever the last time I got it were wiped out as well. And they said that with the chemos, because they gave me 2 different chemos, that I was gonna have a lot of side effects. Gracias a Dios, I only got rashes and I got nausea, and I can't remember if I got something else. But yeah, it's pretty much all I got. And then I officially got my transplant on the 21st. It's not what people think. I remember prior to that, I had a meeting with my BMT doctor again to just go over everything, and I'm like, so am I gonna get the surgery here or what? And she's like, well, first of all, it's not a surgery, it's just like a blood transfusion. Yes, it's pretty much like a blood transfusion, but with cells. So that went really smoothly. They were all in shock that I was doing so well. Um, and then they said that I was gonna be in the hospital for 3 months. We were released May 18. They also said we were gonna be at a family house for another 3 months. And family house is housing provided by the hospital, and they're such a huge blessing. They have food, they have veggies that you can just cook with. They provide, the basic drinks, milk and juice. They have yogurt and who knows what else. But Monday through Thursday, they give dinners. They may not be the best, but gracias a Dios, they provide. If we need anything, we just let them know. They're constantly getting donations from other people, and they always have a bunch of stuff. They're always having Snoopy merch and those flower bears that we constantly see online. But anyways, yeah, it's just been a really crazy ride. And recently we got bad news. The transplant was supposed to make my cancer go away for good. And every time they either checked my spinal fluid, because I was supposed to get chemo once every month for 6 months. I only got it twice. And then they would check my bone marrow. And all the tests would say that I was one less than of cancer cells. And then this Friday that just passed, it was time for me to get chemo again. And they always, because they do it through my Omaya, and they always take out spinal fluid first and then they do the chemo. Well, they sent down the test, and when my nurse practitioner was keeping up to date with it, every time a test came back, she'd check it, and so on and so forth. And then when the spinal fluid came, she was like really surprised that my leukemia advanced. She told my BMT doctor, she was like, "What? That can't be." And so they called the lab and they're like, "Oh, like I think this is wrong, and can you double check?" And so they went down, they looked under the microscope, and now my cancer had come back. I mean, it did come back because I still have it, sadly. June 11th, I'm going back again. 11th, I saw my optometrist, and they always dilate my eyes, but for some reason after that, when I was leaving, my right eye started hurting, and it just wouldn't go away. I sent her a message like a week after, and I told her what was going on. She's like, "Okay, start taking your steroid eye drops 4 times a day." And I'm like, "Okay, thank you so much." And so I started doing that, but it wasn't really doing anything. And it's been almost a month since then. I don't know if you can tell, my eyes like really red, and it's for that reason. because my cancer came back in the same place it did last time, in my my face and my brain. And so right now they're trying to figure out what they're gonna be doing. I just pray that everything goes well. Mama. And that God continues to be with me and my family. Thank you for listening, and hearing me out, hearing my story. Please continue to pray. And thank you.